Out of every trade made in the Southeast Division in the NBA over the past week, you might call me crazy to say that the most consequential of them all will be the LaMelo Ball trade and not the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. I think for short-term reasons, the Miami Heat getting Giannis Antetokounmpo is great, but they still have a lot of work to do around the edges to compete with a team like the New York Knicks or the Boston Celtics. The Charlotte Hornets aren't playing for right now, they're playing for their future. For a while there, it looked like LaMelo Ball would be the cornerstone of the Hornets basketball for the future, and it makes sense why. Last season, he had his best season to date, averaged 20 points a game, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and was available for the most part. That was one of the biggest questions for the Hornets and for the entire basketball world. Would LaMelo Ball be healthy? Would he be available? And would he play a winning style of basketball? And last season, he pretty much proved that. And although he had a really rough play-in game to end the year, the Hornets' future looked bright with LaMelo at the helm, but it seems as though the Hornets organization felt the other way. And to be honest, I can't disagree with them. While LaMelo Ball was maybe one of the biggest driving forces into the Hornets' success last season, maybe the biggest reason why the Hornets took a big jump into the play-in was Brandon Miller. I think the Hornets were waiting for a guy like Brandon Miller to come in, establish himself after a couple of decent, okay seasons, but not necessarily up to the standards of what they thought he would be. They're waiting for him to come in and find his footing, and find who he could be as a player. And last season, I thought he was spectacular, especially from January 1st on. And because the Hornets now see that potential, they see the potential, of course, of Con Knippel, the former number 4 overall pick who had a great rookie season last year. They see the potential of some of their big men like Moussa Diabate, Ryan Kalkbrenner. They now see how the draft is shaken out. They get 2 great young players in Hans Steinbeck and Christian Anderson Jr. I think they look at their roster now and they say, this is a roster full of winning players. This is a roster now that we can trust as the guys. Does LaMelo Ball fit in that long-term future? Does LaMelo Ball's $55 million per year contract fit for the Hornets' future? And I'd say they didn't think so. So they decided to shop him. And while that sweepstakes for LaMelo Ball lasted roughly 12 hours, I don't think they got a bad package at all. In fact, I think their package gives them a lot more flexibility than people would probably think. LaMelo Ball was essentially traded for Naz Reid, an unprotected first-round pick in 2033, 3 future pick swaps, a future second-round pick, and pretty much the rights to re-sign Coby White. And if you're the Hornets, you look at that total package for a guy like LaMelo Ball, who again, availability has been a question, winning basketball has been a question. You look at the totality of the package that you have now. The Hornets essentially traded LaMelo Ball for the right to re-sign Coby White, which they did this morning. 3 years, $75 million-ish, so about $25 million per year. That's about half of what LaMelo Ball was making. He can score at a similar rate, maybe not the same playmaker, but if you believe that he could be a long-term option, you lock him down for a long time, and if not, then he can be a great 6-man. Even at that price tag, I think you would accept what Coby White gives you off the bench as a great scoring option. He can lead your offense, especially a second unit. So you get Coby White. You get Naz Reid now. Naz Reid is under contract for the next, I think, 3 years with a player option. He is a little expensive, I believe around $22 million per year, but he fills 2 needs for you. He gives you size, he can rebound, and I guess the third need, is perimeter shooting. He can put the ball on the floor if you need him to. He gives you a different threat and a different look on offense. And that is especially what the Hornets need, especially off the bench, if they use him off the bench, or they could start him over Miles Bridges. Either way, you're getting a different punch off the bench that will definitely help you in the regular season, and they'll be one of those 7 or 8 guys you can trust in the postseason. That's a great move for them. And that's without mentioning the 3 first-round pick swaps that they're getting from 2028 to 2030, the unprotected first-round pick they're getting in 2033, and at that point, who knows if LaMelo or Ant is on the team. They're also getting a future second-round pick. What the Hornets did here is they created flexibility for themselves for the future, and they gave themselves the assets necessary to make a trade for a different star. They gave up LaMelo Ball for essentially 4 first-round picks, 3 of them swaps, of course, but 4 tradable first-round picks, and a couple of good role players who can come in and give you an instant impact. That is what the Hornets wanted. That's what the Hornets needed, and they give up LaMelo Ball, sure. That's going to be rough for them in a couple of different ways, and I could see them struggling coming out the year. LaMelo Ball is definitely not a bad player like some people would try to tell you. He just has his limitations as a player, and the Hornets can see that, and they see that they can't necessarily rely on him to be on the court fully healthy all the time. and they traded him while his value was high. This was a great move for them, I think. This is all without mentioning, the impact that Christian Anderson could have, the 18th overall pick in this past draft, who I had very high on my board just as a pure scorer, as a pure guy who can come in and impact the game on all three levels as a scorer, who's a great underrated playmaker, especially in the pick and roll. He can come in and give you that spark that you need, likely off of the bench. You're going to probably have Kobe White starting alongside Con Knippel, Brandon Miller, maybe Naz Reid or Miles Bridges, and then Kalkbrenner or Diabate, most likely Diabate, at the 5. And if you do roll out with that lineup with Diabate at the 5, probably get Naz Reid at the 4. Gives you more size, can help you rebound, puts the ball on the floor. I think that's a very, very good lineup, especially in the Eastern Conference, and that's showing me that the Hornets have full confidence in who Brandon Miller can be. We saw a lot of flashes of that last season. He can be the guy that he was projected to be when he was drafted in 2023. We saw that last year, and they believe that his ascent can continue. I believe that as well. Now, I think the next logical question to ask yourself if you're the Hornets is, what is this $40.8 million trade exception going to be used for? Now, of course, the Hornets could just sit on the trade exception, not use it. I believe it expires after a full year of not being used, so they could very well just do that. Or they could use that trade exception to come bring in a star. Now, to get some of the bigger numbers out there, like a Jaylen Brown or somebody of that nature, maybe a Kawhi Leonard now that he's on the block, you'd have to reroute that trade exception as well as Naz Reid, make this a 3-team deal. I don't know if the Hornets necessarily want to do that. But if they do, that is an option. I believe the trade goes through in about a week and a half. So they'd have a week and a half to build something up for Jaylen Brown, which would involve Naz Reid, that trade exception, and likely a bunch of picks, both their own or Minnesota's. Same thing with Kawhi Leonard. We've heard a lot about Kawhi Leonard's future in the last couple of days. Kawhi Leonard wants to stay with the Clippers, but maybe the Clippers don't necessarily want to keep him, especially if the right offer comes around. Now, is the right offer Naz Reid a trade exception and a bunch of first-round picks? I'm not sure. Maybe the Clippers would like that, especially for Kawhi Leonard, who's definitely getting up there in age. Speaking of reliability, with LaMelo Ball, isn't the most reliable as well, but when he's healthy, is one of the 10 best players in the NBA. We saw that last season. Would the Clippers accept that deal? Probably not. So maybe the Hornets would need to reassess that situation, keep Naz Reid, which personally I would do, and use that trade exception for something else. Now, again, you're looking for guys who make under $40.8 million per year. You can't have somebody make over that trade exception because you can't add another player to the deal. So you're looking at guys under $40.8 million per year. And maybe the guy that sticks out the most, making a little bit under $40 million per year. Someone who could be on the move. This is seemingly a rebuilding team. Somebody who is a very good player, coming off of an unfortunate injury a couple of years ago, but seems to be fully recovered now. Yes, I'm talking about Kyrie Irving. Now, would that be absolutely insane? Yes. But tell me they wouldn't have the most electric offense with Kyrie Irving, Brandon Miller, Con Knippel as your top 3 options. That would be absolutely electric. That would bring you a veteran presence who has been there, done that as a championship level point guard. Someone who could add leadership to that team, and someone who can help them win now, if that's what they're going for, of course. Maybe you look at the lineup and you say, you know what, let's add another forward to the lineup. I don't know why they would do that, considering they already have Con probably running shooting guard, Brandon Miller at the 3, maybe Naz at the 4. But if you say you want more size as a forward, no problem. Maybe you get Trey Murphy from the Pelicans, someone who could add defense and shooting and fit into almost any system in the NBA. He makes under $30 million per year. Give the Pelicans a couple of first-round picks, I'm sure they would accept that. Or if you're still on the train of taking on salary, taking back first-round picks in exchange, maybe you want to do that. Maybe you look at a team like the Mavericks again, Chris Middleton making a big contract. I believe he has an expiring deal. If you want to take on more first-round picks, you can do that. What I'm saying here is that $40.8 million exception that they just acquired gives them a lot of flexibility. They could go after the star if they wanted to. They could go after the young star who could be a part of their core for a long-term future, or they could use it for a salary dump, take on the salary, get more picks, maybe use those picks and trade someone else alongside with that. Maybe a Miles Bridges, if the trade is done early enough, or the first trade to get the salary and the picks. If that trade's done early enough, you could trade the expiring contract of Miles Bridges. I believe he's at around $25 million per year. You could parlay that with a different large contract that you have. Maybe a Grant Williams, who I believe is at about $12 million per year. That's almost $40 million right there. You get that $40 million, maybe a couple first-round picks, you throw it somewhere, and some team will accept that. I can guarantee that. Maybe if it's for Kyrie Irving, if it's for a Trey Murphy, or if it's for somebody else. If you want to believe in the potential of a guy like Jalen Suggs, I don't know why you would do that, but if you wanted to and take on that contract, you could do that. If you wanted to win now, you could take on the contract of Drew Holiday if the Trailblazers are disappointing. You could do something like that. Essentially, what I'm saying here is that trading LaMelo Ball is opening up so many different opportunities for the Hornets here. And while you may be giving up on a great young talent like LaMelo Ball, you're essentially building up the flexibility and getting more role players and opening up the possibility to get something greater than LaMelo Ball and compete either right now or for the future. You've opened up so many possibilities if you're the Hornets, and I think this is a complete, absolute win for the Hornets. If you agree or disagree with anything that I said, or with anything about this trade, maybe you think the Timberwolves won the trade, comment down below your thoughts, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back with more NBA videos very shortly.